If you want to start or scale your property development business to 8 figures and beyond, then you're in the right place. This is the Property Experts Podcast with Ben Richards and Jack Jiggins, two serial entrepreneurs bringing weekly insights from our award-winning businesses. In these podcasts, you'll learn how we found, funded and delivered over £80 million worth of property in the last 6 years, with templates you can use, deal analysis and deep dive discussions that will help you build your businesses successfully. We hope you'll enjoy.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you always for joining. And if you're new to the channel, myself and Ben run multiple businesses in property and construction, and we've got some very construction related topics coming up today, so make sure you stay tuned. We'll be talking about Brendan Quinn's National Development Summit, which is tomorrow, so Saturday. We'll be talking about the importance of early input from planning consultants. We've been firing emails back and forth on a few new sites and why you need to de-risk your projects from a planning perspective. We'll be talking about a second bank, where banks are coming like buses at the moment for us. So yeah, we'll be sharing what that might be. We'll be talking about structuring team reviews. That's people in your team, how you structure those reviews. And we will be actually sharing those templates at no cost. We'll be talking about self-assessments. We had a deadline a few weeks ago that you were probably working away, rambling around, trying to work out what the last year of finances came. We're sharing some top tips to speed that process up and what we do in that process. We'll be talking about snagging. We actually had a site where we probably weren't on the snagging as best as we could be, and we'll be sharing the mistakes we made and how we're now putting new processes in place to make sure that we're maximizing profits and speed of projects coming to an end. We're talking through a few site updates, including Marlow, the Old Maltings, and also St Andrew's Court. And then earlier today, I had a call with a valuer, so I thought it would be valuable to you guys to share what that call was about and why you should be doing it with valuers, because they do tend to scupper quite a lot of financial side of things. And then we've got 2 questions at the Q&A, but we are live, so please do ask questions as we go through. It doesn't cost you anything to ask a question, and we will hopefully give you a valuable answer.
Cool. Welcome, everyone. I put this slide in here as well. So our mission is to deliver 1,000 homes and £1 billion in property in the UK, collaborating with trusted investors. So if you are an investor and you like the look of the types of things that we get involved in, do reach out to us. Cool. On to point number 1. Brendan Quinn's National Development Summit. He hasn't done one of these for 5 years, I think. I think it was 2020 before COVID and stuff hit. And that was a cracking event. I think there were 300 people in the room and in the exhibitions areas and things like that. And this this time around, it will be no different. There'll be great people in the room, lots of networking opportunities. It is tomorrow, the 8th of February, between 8:30 and 5 p.m. It is in the Marriott in Heathrow.
In Heathrow, yeah. I think they
pretty easy to get to.
It's pretty super simple to get to.
And there'll be various. I mean, the agenda is so jam packed. I mean, there are panel discussions, there are speakers. There are opportunities to network, Q&As. We've got 3 main panels, one of which I'll be on and Jack will be chairing. And then Jack's one of the panelists on one of the other panels, and he's also chairing one of the other ones. So we've got land and planning opportunities in 2025, which I'll be discussing in amongst some heavy hitters like Paul Higgs and John Howard. Funding and structuring opportunities. There'll be some financial brokers and Jack from a funding and structuring perspective. And then we've got a bit on delivery and execution. So our good friends of Stuart Wyeth and James Cross, James Allen from procurement for house builders. Yeah, some really interesting discussions around how to deliver your sites effectively, cheaply, and on time. So yeah, if you are in the property development space, it is tomorrow, so make sure that you're signing up tonight. If you need a link, then drop us a DM and we can send you details for that. So yeah, hope to see as many people as possible there.
Yeah, I still think it's possibly one of my favorite property events. And the great thing about Brendan's events is he hasn't got anything to sell other than his next event and the people speaking there. So he always manages to put on a really good show. He's meticulous with his organizing. I think I've spoken to Brendan more this last week than my wife while I was away skiing. Bless Bless him, but he really does care. So yeah, make sure you hit up your tickets. And it's hasn't been on for 5 years, so you know, get the tickets, get in the room. I know it is a Saturday, but I'll be learning, and I'm sure Ben will feel the same way.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait. Cool. And then point number 2 is something that we've been factoring in a lot recently, risk mitigation, effectively in the early stages of offering on sites and getting on board your consultants as soon as possible. And we've made or broken deals through this process with the feedback that we've got. So in particular, the point that was raised, and the reason I put this in there is because I've been looking at a site in central London. It's cracking site, old commercial unit with scope to kind of knock it down and rebuild, sort of 4 stories plus a basement, decent sized project, probably sort of £7 million GDV. But there are a few niggles around the planning use class and the historic sort of planning applications, and we know through previous experience that some councils want a certain period of marketing when they're losing a community asset or a commercial space. So, you know, I just wanted some quick and dirty, I guess, kind of research from a planning consultant to review the scheme for me, highlight any red flags early on. This wasn't a full-blown planning analysis of the site. There were a couple of key risks that I'd identified, and those were the things that I wanted him to review for me. So for a couple £100, what I'm doing there is de-risking from an early stage, highlighting some of the key things that need to be reviewed and discussed, and then getting a professional in to give their professional opinion. And that is exactly what happened. And we've changed the offer structure within this deal. We're giving ourselves more time, I guess, to unlock some of the issues that the planning consultant found. And I just thought it would be worthwhile sharing. And I actually found this 4 types of risk mitigation when I was Googling photos to put on the screen. And I thought they were pretty good. You know, there's 4 types of risk mitigation. You can either accept the risk and move on regardless. You can avoid the risk. You can transfer the risk to something else, or you know, indemnity insurance, things like that, transferring the risk, or you can reduce the risk. You know, what are the ways in which you can actually just reduce the risk from something that might have been high to a medium or low position. So yeah, I thought it was worthwhile putting in there. Make sure that you're leaning on your planning consultants. You don't have to spend thousands of pounds for this type of thing. You know, we do work with planning consultants that for a few £100 will look at key things and key risks on a certain site, so that it's not costing us a huge amount of money, but it's giving us comfort in moving forward, or discomfort in not moving forward, basically, if we need to swerve the site altogether. Anything you wanted to say, Jack?
Like it. I mean, it's just the way I find managing risk is like the most help you get from various different sources, and the most studying and homework you do, the lower the risk naturally will be. And you really do have to put those yards in to put it into actual context, into something else. The valuer I was speaking to on Tame, I said that we did so much work originally on the comparables, going to like 8 estate agents. You kind of, even though there isn't a comparable for what we're selling, your knowledge of the sort of the risk itself is way more in depth and more in detail. So you can, you know, reduce it. And, you know, I think you can do a multiple of these and transfer it to the owner from a creative structure. You can reduce it by your knowledge, and you can accept it by knowing where the bottom line will be. So yeah, like it.
Cool. Good stuff. And then on to point number 3, because we are buying a second bank. This is the one on screen that we exchanged on a couple of weeks ago. I met the utilities consultant on site just to, again, sort of de-risk our position, get one of the highest risk items finished and closed off as soon as you possibly can. Utilities are always the thing that drags out schemes and costs a lot of money. So the sooner you can de-risk that position, the better. Hence why we've got our utilities consultant on board now. But we are buying a second bank, and Jack knows way more about this than I do, because I only saw it about 2 days ago.
Yeah, so it's we obviously can't share the image on the screen, so You guys can't go out there and scupper us and bite yourselves. But we will be sharing it in due course. Obviously, Ben said we've exchanged on this one, so we can be sharing and singing from the top of the hills. So, we were actually just packaged up the marketing brochure to relist the ground floor already pre-exchange, pre-completion. But the new bank is actually not too dissimilar to this one that you can see here. It's in a market town centre. It's had quite a bit of creativity played around with it. What I'm actually seeing for anyone out there struggling to find deals is a lot of people do what we call the sort of ego building, where they feel that they've got to do a load of new build on a particular site. So this particular bank we're looking at has quite a lot of space in the car park at the rear. The previous owner who we're buying it off has drawn up like some grand scheme of putting big detached houses in that car park. But we would like that as a cherry on the top, but that's not the necessity of how we de-risk that particular project. So bidding and being creative on what's there and that footprint that's there might actually be more profitable and drag the scheme from less time through full planning. So it's been a lot of back and forth to get this bank agreed. I don't know if Ben actually knows. The seller wanted to meet us. So we met face to face with the seller, which is quite unique in an environment where you're buying through an agent. So it's a property that is on the open market. The buyers requested to meet us face to face, and obviously we're now got to a point where we're under offer. That obviously paid its dues and was valuable, and we did it at our office space so they could sort of see the environment and the business that we're running, and that's real, and we are real people here to buy the building. Because it's in a family trust, they only own a couple of assets in that, so it's not frequent that they go through selling something. So it's a big decision for them. So that was something that was quite cool and actually a proposal by them, but definitely something if we're struggling to get something over the line, and specifically because we couldn't meet at the right value, it came across quite well, and we've obviously successfully managed to get that secured, which is amazing. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll be revealing a lot more. We are obviously putting this out to our investor base to see who we can collaborate on this project with. So if you are interested, we will have an investment deck together. So please just comment investment deck on bank or something, and we can share that with you. Make sure you say new bank, because even though this one isn't old, we need to know what you want to see. But yeah, we're super excited about it. Actually, it's I feel like we're kind of building a bit of a niche going down the route of because both are potentially going to be cluster HMO flats with a bit of development and conversion and repurposing the ground floor, which is great. It's really good. And actually, to put it in perspective, this bank that's in front of you, we're buying for £800,000, and we were looking at the pricing for the ground floor and basement, and we might get half of that back just by selling that ground floor on. And if you think about how much space in this particular deal, I know that you can just see a limited image, and we will do a deep dive on the bank one day, but we're getting essentially 3 flats and an office space at the back for very little cost for where it's located. So yeah, should be a good one, and we'll share more in due course.
Nice. And it is worth saying, big letters at the bottom of this, it is open for investment. So if you are looking to place, it's worth saying anywhere between £50,000 to £2 million, we probably have opportunities for you. So if you are looking to invest in UK real estate and want a trusted pair of hands in award-winning developers like Jack and I, get in touch. We'd love to have a chat. Cool. And on that note, we know that you guys get value from these podcasts. You tell us all the time. This is another one of the comments that we get in sort of DMs, which is fantastic. We do want you to continue rating us on Spotify and leaving reviews on Apple, because it shows the algorithm that it's being watched, people are enjoying it, and it spreads it out to more people. And we definitely are getting more traction. So thank you very much for those that have done that. But we want more. We always want more. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And if you could just rate us and review us, that would be absolutely brilliant. Cool. Structuring team reviews. I have gone through a round in January, certainly with Aura, and quite a lot with XP actually, in terms of yearly reviews or half-yearly reviews. And I thought it would be good to do a bit of a deep dive into kind of how we do that. I think we've done this before, but I am literally going to share my screen, and I'm going to share with you the structure and the template that we use within our business to review our team. So, if you're looking to grow a team, if you're looking to scale your business and you want to bring in new people, which is the only way you can grow a business, then you're going to have to learn how to manage people, how to run, efficient HR processes. And, we were pretty fluffy, I'd say, at the start of our businesses, where we didn't have these structures, we didn't have these processes, and you come unstuck when maybe you have to fire someone, for example, and you haven't got the track history of managing their performance and showing that you've done the things you should be doing to help them succeed in the role, and having that track record of progress. So yeah, these are literally our template documents from a review perspective. If you want this, then drop a comment below called review, and we can get this sent across to you. So very simple at the top, it's who is the team member, what date did they start within your business, what's their job title, and then we would generally put a hyperlink to their job description, which is a whole nother beast in itself, to be honest. Who's their line manager, and then what is the date of the review. And then we get into the good stuff. So basically this top section is going to be all about the key areas of that person's role. And normally, if your job descriptions are set up well from day one, it should be almost a copy paste of their key tasks and key areas within the business that can go into this this review. Because ultimately, if you've been really clear about what their job role is within your business in the job description, that's what you should be managing them on. That's what you should be judging them on in terms of their performance. And that's why it needs to go into this section. So we've got 5 different categories, from excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, and requires improvement. And then ultimately each row is a different part of the key area within this person's role. And I mean, this looks like it's templated, drafted as if it's a sort of assistant of some kind. Obviously these things will change depending on the job role itself and who you are reviewing. So that's all good. That's their kind of general key areas and the sort of things that they are responsible for within the business. And then we go on to more generic stuff. So this is more about using discretion and trustworthiness in the company, taking responsibility, making decisions for your workload, your communication and organizational skills, ability to multitask, ability to utilize technology and all of the systems and processes that you use in your business. And again, it's excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, requires improvement. So you've got this sort of the sort of output of their role, and then it comes on to the input of their role. So actually, the summary of their performance from an input perspective. So that's their willingness to work, the volume and speed of work, the quality of work, using their initiative, progress since last review, all of these things. There really should be a fifth column in here. Actually, I've missed that. So it should, I'd say, I think at one point we started with just requires improvement, satisfactory, good, very good. And then you get, superstars within the business that very good just doesn't cut the mustard. So you need to add another column of excellent. Maybe we'll end up having outstanding at some point. But I think, it's good to have that split where so you'll find some team members like are on the cusp of something and need to have almost another level to jump to one for them to give them some progression opportunity, but 2, they're just generally performing at that level. So yeah, that's all the sort of the inputs. And then it comes down to the cooperation and communication within the team. So you're looking at how well they communicate with staff at their own level, staff reporting to them if they're in a managerial position, how they get on with their manager, how do they externally get on with the consultants that they're working with or the clients that they're working with. And then it comes down to the more, that's a checkbox exercise of kind of grading system as such. And then you're down to the more subjective things, which are a bit more kind of longer winded and basically over to the team themselves. So the one thing that I should have said at the start of this is that we give this review form to our team members. this isn't something that we fill out to start with. We actually give it to the team member for them to fill it out themselves. So you get to see their expectations or where they think they're at in their role. And then during the review meeting itself or beforehand, we would often fill out our own review. And then you can compare and contrast expectations. You know, if your expectations are up here as the employer, but your team member isn't on the same wavelength, well, you need to do something about that. Or vice versa, where your employee thinks they're an absolute superstar and, you know, all guns blazing, doing fantastically well, but you actually think there's huge amounts of improvement that they need to make in certain areas. Well, there's a huge misalignment there. So this is the opportunity in these reviews to feedback that deficit. So coming on to things like what parts of the job do they enjoy? What parts do they not enjoy so much? And this is really actually crucial because you get to understand more about what makes them tick. So if you understand what makes people tick, you know where to place them in certain situations, what they're going to excel at and what they're going to be more motivated to do well, more so than the things that they don't enjoy and therefore probably aren't that motivated to kind of want to do more of those types of tasks. Then it's more about their strengths, and we don't say weaknesses, we say areas to consider, but effectively it's strengths and weaknesses. You know, what are they strongest at, in what areas of the business are their key strengths, and then actually, you know, what are the things where they're not quite doing as well as they should be, what areas do they need to consider improving, and, you know, that then feeds back into how you as a manager, as a business, can help them do it. Then we set key criteria like performance targets and goals. So this is very specific and measurable, and this is really key because, you know, if you do have issues with a team member and you know, you have to put them on a performance management process or you know, fire them, I guess, and because they're not performing, you know, these are key things that you can refer back to. You're almost agreeing these targets within the review and saying, look, is this achievable for you? If they say yes and they're agreeing to it, you know, in 6 months down the line they haven't done it, well, then there's no fallback from that. It's, you know, you agreed this, we agreed this together. This is what the targets were. You haven't achieved them, you know, therefore X, Y, and Z. And then the management actions are things that you can, based on what's been said in terms of areas to consider or the performance targets that they need to achieve. But what do you need to do as a manager, as a business owner, to help them achieve those targets? So it might be training, it could be extra education, it could be a helping hand with X, Y, and Z. So yeah, that's what the management actions are going to include. And then lastly, this is something we introduced about a year ago, and this is more about like the company culture and us. Like, a review shouldn't just be one way where you are interrogating your team member. You know, it should be a feedback loop for both business owner and employee. And that's what this final stage is all about. So it's a system of understanding what their views are on the business and how you could maybe improve upon them. So how would you rate the company culture? How would you rate the company management? Are you happy with your career progression? These are all key things that you need to understand as a business owner to make sure that most people leave a company because of their manager. It's not because they hate the job or hate the tasks or hate the job role or hate their the people that they work with. It's normally they leave a business because they are not being given the support they need from a line manager. So you need to understand that to make sure that you are retaining staff. A few more questions about the company culture. More questions in management whereby people can explain and elaborate on some of the things up here. So this was a checkbox type thing again, where it's grading, excellent, very good, good, satisfactory. But this section allows them to elaborate on some of those key things that maybe there's been a specific situation where they need to relay to you that this has happened, that has happened, and this gives them the opportunity to do that. So yeah, that is it top to bottom. If you want this template, you know, we do find that this is an excellent way of covering all bases and going into a review structured, retaining staff better, improving your systems and relationships with your team. And yeah, you know, there's many ways you can do this. This works for us. This has been taken and stolen from various bits and bobs across the years into a place where I think it's a really comprehensive way of reviewing your team.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, just on top of that exact document, we also do now like an intermediary soft review where we're not going through the template. We just take them out for a coffee or a lunch and try and tease out maybe anything else. They control the conversations, whether they're a little bit stressed because they're moving house, or you're trying to tease out other conversations that are a little bit softer, because these, I say to probably the biggest introvert in our company, I said, where do you want to go for lunch? And he couldn't believe that it was his choice, and he was sort of leading the conversation. And it was good. We had good conversations about work, and I actually encouraged him to maybe consider going on holiday, because since he's worked for us for 3.5 years, he's never taken a day to go and travel somewhere. And it's about giving that balance back as well. And just to touch on Ben's input and output, which I love, because you should always expect any employee to have the input there. The output is normally a professionalism that's learned over a period of time. Sometimes you might hire someone in quite senior, the output is already there. And if the input isn't there, then you've got a problem immediately. Input can obviously be changed. But if you've got someone that maybe not has the technical skills and the output, but their input is there, so they're being, they're turning up to work really keen, they're doing what they can, they're learning, then that's an adaptable person that could potentially be high input, high output too.
Nice. Cool. So January 31st is self-assessment time. We ran out of time a couple of weeks ago to go through this. It shouldn't take long. Is my mic still really crap, Jack?
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Is it right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Cool. So self-assessment time, if you have buy-to-let properties, if you are a business owner, if you have various other things where you are getting income outside of your PAYE job, you will need to do a self-assessment every year. That time comes around very quickly. The end of January is the deadline for online submissions, which most people do nowadays. And I always find it's just like a really stressful time where I try not to leave it to the end, the final week. And I had been this time round, like asking my accountant for, what do you need? Can we have a chat? Because, there's a few things that have happened this year that I want to discuss with you, blah, blah. And, it seems to be that it literally the final deadline day of the 31st of January at 5 o'clock in the afternoon was when I got my, draft calculations from my accountant, which I absolutely hate. But anyway, I've thought it'd be useful to discuss. I have a specific way of kind of setting up and documenting everything that's happened in the year. And I thought I'd just share that really in the hope that it helps a few people. You can see I've been doing self-assessment since 2011. This is my sort of folder directory where I sort of hold all of the information that I want to store and send. So basically I just store it in these files. I send a OneDrive link to my accountant, and they have access then to everything that I've put into the various sections within those folders. So when you click into 2023, 2024, for example, you will have this set of folders within it. That's the accountant and legal fees, bank interest, charity donations, council tax, dividends, expenses, food and drink, expenses maintenance, expenses other, expenses travel, expenses utility bills, mortgage interest, P60, rent statements, and student loans. So there might be a couple of things additional to that. Like a couple of years ago, I had a capital gains tax bill because I sold an asset. So all of the information went into a capital gains folder. But I find this just a really good way of, as and when things come in. So if I've had to replace a washing machine on one of my buy-to-lets, for example, as soon as that invoice comes in from my agent, I just document it and drop it in the OneDrive folder for maintenance expenses, so that basically come the end of the year, I'm not literally having to search through every single email from my agent, hoping that I can find some reference to a cost that I've found in my spreadsheet. So yeah, that's how I do it. It does get to a point where I think I only introduced this in like 2020 after about 9 years of doing it. But I had to write myself a little notepad sort of text document to just remind myself every year the process that I need to go through. So downloading all of my bank statements, generally do that in an Excel format. So just a reminder to myself that I've got a Halifax current account, a Santander current account, an Amex credit card, all this sort of stuff. Just downloading all of those in an Excel format, dropping them into my my relevant folders, highlighting my mortgages, insurance, etc. on the bank statement so that the accountant can clearly see, the ins and outs of each property. For example, I have a color coding system for different businesses, so Aura yellow, XP blue. All my personal costs are in green. Making sure that I've as early as I can got my P11D, which is for company cars, and my P60 from my accountant, so I can drop those into the folder. Checking my repairs and maintenance invoices, looking at any bank interest for the accountants to add to the statements, to add to the calculations. Any charity donations, I'll typically print those email receipts and drop them as a PDF into one of my folders. And then, any other expenses and receipts that I can gather. If I've not done it throughout the year, which I'm glutton for punishment in that perspective, I don't always, as soon as I spend something, put it somewhere safe. It might be that I take a photo of it and then forget for 3 months before then putting it in a folder system. And then any completion statements for any sales proceeds. So hopefully that's useful for a few people. I mean, I know people do it in many different ways, but I thought I'd show the structure and the process that I go through for self-assessments.
Yeah, mine's actually not too dissimilar. But obviously I'm a bit younger than you, Ben. And
You are.
I'm more of the era where limited company structures were more popular, and so there's less stuff that I prerequisitely did in my own name. So there's less, technically, I think I can't even remember the age I was when I had the first investment house in my own name was quite late on. So
Yeah, it is a pain in the arse. I mean, obviously, Section 24 tax put an end to offsetting mortgage interest for landlords. But it's been a real nightmare. And I mean, without giving sort of tax advice, every year I'll try to sort of max out my takings to the lower tax band bracket, so 50k. Typically I'll try to just max out what I can in terms of dividends and the rental income from my buy-to-lets and any other income that I've got coming in. We'll try to limit that to £50,000. So effectively what I'm normally doing is doing all of the expenses, looking at all the salary drawings and other income, and then effectively my last piece of the puzzle is my dividends, because I will sort of only draw dividends up to that 50 grand level, to make sure that I'm retaining myself into that lower tax bracket. And that's not going to be right for everyone, because some people might need to get a mortgage in the next couple of years, etc., and need to show more income than that for their properties, etc. But when you're running multiple businesses, when you're earning enough to kind of have control over the tax you pay and how you structure your drawings, that 50k level and keeping within that tax bracket is often a sensible thing to do, but obviously seek your own tax advice. Cool. What is snagging? I've raised this because if you go over to the Aura YouTube channel, which is Homes by Aura, we released a video yesterday all about what the snagging process involved. And some of you might be wondering what the hell snagging is. I know Peter at the start of this video said he needed to put on his glasses because he misread the title and thought we were going to be talking about snogging today. Assume that's what he meant. But it's snagging process is something that happens at the end of every project. And you should either have somebody competent enough to walk around and look for these snagging items, or get a third-party home inspection snagging report carried out by someone else. And what it is basically literally going around a finished property, finished development, and finding every single issue you can possibly find and putting it into a document whereby everything is listed, and you can then hand that to your contractor to rectify. There are certain rules and standards that are expected when creating new homes. Often it's led by the NHBC, which is the National Home Building something Corporation. I don't actually know what it is, but it's the NHBC.
I think it is National Home Building.
Whatever it is, it's something like that.
Also, I think Peter thought it was shagging. What is shagging?
Oh, I see. Not snogging. Fair. Yeah. I went to snogging, you went to shagging. So yeah, the snagging process, we've just had one done on one of our flats in St Andrew's Court. I think there were 76 items, and that actually may sound like loads, but when it's every single like paintwork sort of smudge or poor paintwork scratches is noted, I've seen snagging lists where it's 500 items long, and the builder just needs to start working their way through them. And some of them will be minor like that. Others might be more intricate, like I mentioned with the building control video that I did a couple of months ago, where they had one of these. And they were plonking it in the door frame, and if it was more than 4 millimeter gap, then that door needs to be adjusted, or the door frame needs to be adjusted. So a lot of the things on the list will be minor, and there'll be redecoration of certain areas, but there could also be more difficult things to rectify within that snagging list. But anyway, if you want to know more about it, do head over to the Aura YouTube channel. It's a 4-minute long video that I think is quite informative. You can actually download a template of a snagging checklist, basically, so you've got something to use whilst you're going around a property if you're doing it yourself, and give you a really good starting point to then make sure you're not missing out on the things that we've had issues with before, where we've not done a proper snagging process. It's bit us in the arse massively. It's cost us a huge amount of money to go back and rectify some of those issues, when in reality it should have been the contractor to do, but we've signed things off and got to practical completion and paid back retentions, for example, when actually things weren't done as good as they could be done, and we should have snagged the development far better.
Probably worthwhile asking the question, at what point, and it may be in the video, but I think this will be useful for the listeners, at what point would you get someone else in to snag for you, or against, like you said, just doing it yourself?
Yeah, it depends how competent you are. If you know what you're looking for, then you should be able to use a checklist and work your way through a property. But in reality, there'll be a lot of new developers listening to this, or there'll be a lot of new property investors that are jumping into property development for the first time and maybe haven't sold a property. It might be that you're an investor and you buy stuff and you hold it and that's it, and the quality of it it's going to get ruined with tenants, and you're not that fussed. But when you're selling a property, there's every chance, like flat 3 in Sunset Court, for example, that the new buyers get their own third-party report done. So you're probably jumping the gun by doing it yourself, or getting a third party in to do it. So I think it depends how competent you are. Like even I actually probably wouldn't waste my time doing it, because for the cost, it's a couple £100, but that's that's a lot of my time to sort of to counteract it. So I would say it's well worth spending the money on a third party. And even then you've got a there's no ambiguity or pushback from your contractor at that point, where the contractor's saying, oh, you're just being pedantic, why do I need to touch up that paintwork there? You're saying, well, this is a third party accredited professional that understands the NHBC standards inside out. They are the ones saying that this isn't the quality isn't good enough on this. You need to rectify it. So I think it's just always worth paying for it, to be honest.
Yeah, I would caveat that with on our HMOs, we've had contractors that have done, Richard, for example, he's probably done to circa 20 projects. And if I sent him a long list of items of snagging for a house renovation, HMO conversion, or a flip, he wouldn't read it. He would just say, can we walk around site and review it? And that's typically what we would do, is we get like the blue colored tape or orange colored tape, and just put tape all over the house where there's a potential issue. And it might be a door's catching, it might be a carpet stained, it might be that the paint's not good enough in a certain area. And then he knows he can walk around, get the decorator, get the carpenter to finish everything off. But that tends to work only well when you have a good relationship with the contractor, and you're not going to think they're going to screw you over in 3 weeks' time when it's not been done and it's not being tracked of being done, which is a key point Ben said there. When you get a third party in, it's a third opinion, and then you can actually prove that it was an issue 3 weeks ago and hasn't been resolved yet, which is sometimes difficult with contractors, because the first thing they want to do is get off that site and move on to the next project.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, head over to the Aura YouTube and check out that video. Free downloadable checklist. Cool. Now we're into the realms of site updates. I've been to 3 sites this week, and I'm going to be talking through a little bit of an update on how we're getting on each one, giving you a bit of an insight into site photos and sort of the progress that we're making. So first one was Marlow, which we've spoken about a lot recently. Obviously, last week we did, or I did on my Todd, the deep dive analysis. So if you're tuning in for the first time now and want to go really deep for an hour into one project, where I literally bring up our development appraisal, I talk about all of our sales materials, I break down every single line item in our development appraisal and explain the costs associated with the project, literally showing the profitability, how much we're spending in finance, every single thing about that project. You can find in season 3 episode 5, which was last week's video. So there's me on site yesterday. This project, you can see the new dormers behind me up on the roof. They're cracking on really well with the externals now. The garden walls are in place. We've got a bit of work to do before we start putting the paving down and the landscaping. This whole section on the right hand side next to these walls will be landscape with planting and bushes, just to kind of make that whole walkway down to the rear of the site feel a lot more green, and just soften it up a little bit, other than these two hard walls. All of the windows and doors now are in. As I was on site, they were literally installing the entrance doors to flats 7 and 8 at the end of the development. And yeah, we went for sash windows in the end instead of sort of casement. They were originally casement windows, but it is a high-end project that we wanted to add a bit more quality on, and went for sash windows. This is the showroom. So we've discussed before, but you should always think about installing furniture within a show flat, and pulling forward in your build program a show flat where people can touch and feel and smell the freshness of new finishes, which is only going to sell your properties faster. So really happy with how these turned out. I think the bathrooms look amazing. Alex's finish is excellent, and I was actually intrigued to see when we get a snagging report done of this property, I'll be intrigued to see what they find, because with my naked eye walking around, there was very, very little that I could see that needed rectifying or touching up and things like that. That was the show home. This is the rear of the site. So I mentioned last week that we went in for extra planning approvals to extend into the courtyard and gain extra space. And that is why this rear unit and unit 7 are lagging behind. We've got first fix going in. You can see all the cables and stuff going in. The stud-work partitioning for the bathroom has just been installed. All of the first fix hidden cisterns for the WC, and the pipe work for the sinks and the shower valves, all that sort of stuff is going in. And a lot of the flats had recently been plastered. So yeah, we're lagging behind on those rear 2 units. We've got the show home finished, and 3 of the other units are really well progressed. They'll be done in a week or 2. And then there's a bit more work to do on the front listed building, but yeah, not far behind really. So yeah, good progress. I mentioned last week we've got 5 of the 8 under offer, and I think we will get 2 of the final 3 ones under offer early next week. We're back and forth with a couple of buyers on bits and bobs, so just they've made some requests that we're looking into and providing them some costs for. So yeah, next week hopefully we'll have some even more better news. And then we're on to the Old Maltings. This is in Abingdon. If you tuned into our site tours, then you'd have seen this. A beautiful building, old sort of malt house, brewery type building, red brick, nice blue brick detailing, it's really, really nice building. We've now filled in the undercroft with the new windows and doors. So the tanking system is going to go in next week to waterproof that whole lower section. And yeah, things are really motoring on. We've got planning approval for 2 new houses where I'm circling on the screen. So next to this van here. And all that work is going to commence shortly once we finalise the costings. But they're cracking on site. We met the structural engineer and the steel fabricator on site a couple of days ago. And oh, hey, buddy, you're in your pajamas. I'm on a call, buddy. Okay, I'll be up in a minute. Okay.
Yeah, but what are you doing?
No, I'm on a call. Okay, go back upstairs to mummy, and I'll come back. I'll come up in a bit.
Take over for a second.
Yeah, go on.
You can see on the right-hand side photo there where we've got this ugly steel sort of girder porch type thing that was on the commercial building, the office entrance. We've actually got planning permission to remove that, build the front facade wall up to like a very old brewery style look, and we're actually going up into that loft space. But as you can see, the progress on the site, it's quite a intricate build that we're working with lots of steel work, which you can see. And yeah, we're super excited to see this one progress and the flats start to come together. So it's 21 apartments and the 2 houses in the car park space. But yeah, super just keen to get cracking with this one, mainly because it's such a beautiful heritage building, which we're integrating a lot of features. As a carport sort of area that used to be sort of an arched brickwork, which we're retaining as well within the apartment. So it's going to have a lot of character, which is sometimes difficult to maintain with commercial conversions, I would say.
Yeah, sorry. I can't believe that's the first time in like 3 years that's happened, that my kid has interrupted. But anyway, yeah, where did you get to? Just talking about this, the framework in here.
No, I was talking about the front and retaining some of the character. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Oh, well, there's a CGI coming up, so people can understand what we're doing at the front. But this steel work on the left-hand side was causing a lot of headaches. There was a huge amount of steel work within a sort of false ceiling, and it's a lot of effort and a lot of work to kind of do what we want to do, to the point where we are, you know, we do have to weigh up the cost associated with doing it and the benefit of, you know, of actually getting it. I think ultimately, without doing the works we need to do, we would be down to a 2-bedroom flat instead of a 4-bedroom HMO. So weighing up the cost of an additional 2 bedrooms at 750 quid a month times 2, you're looking at £18,000 in rental income for those additional 2 bedrooms. You know, if it takes 4 years to get that money back, you know, that's still a decent return. So we are at the point where we are looking at the costs and trying to understand, you know, is it actually the right thing to do to go through the headache of removing a lot of this steel and opening up the space. You know, I'd love to see it because I think it will look fantastic. We're basically installing a bed deck right underneath this large roof light, which will look fantastic. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, as Jack said, this front steel structure and glass structure will be removed, and this is what we're aiming for. So at the moment, this is where the glass structure is, but we're knocking that down. We're rebuilding a brickwork facade, introducing the sort of old school dock warehouse type, you know, painted name on the side of the building, which I think looks super cool. Mansard style roof with dormers, and again, you know, that takes us from a 1-bedroom flat to a 5-bedroom HMO, which obviously has huge amounts of value. Sorry, Peter, I missed your question. Marlow's looking great. Do you have your next site tour date in mind? Love the kitchen layout, lots of counter space. Yeah, we tried to get as much kitchen in there as we possibly can. The site tour date will be released very soon. I think we might have a date, but I think we're just going back on a few things.
Yeah, I know the date we've penciled in. If you would like me to share.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, we've penciled it in.
24th of April is the date.
24th of April. Cool.
If you would like to receive information on it, just comment site tour date and we will get it to you.
Yeah, nice. Cool. And then St Andrew's Court. Taken longer than we wanted to. A few issues with delays with the builder, more issues with Thames Water, but thankfully we have had confirmation that in 5 days' time the new water connections will be made, which is amazing. You know, we've been waiting for ages for that to happen. If they cancel again, I am going to go ape shit. But anyway, you know, they are due to come in. The balconies are looking really super sweet. We've got the terraces, which you can see at the top here as well, giving private amenity. The landscaping has now been finished. They've got some nice trims in front of this boundary wall, the garden wall, and there was a boatload of planting being delivered on the back of a van today that I saw a photo of. So next time I go to site, which will be sometime next week, all of this frontage will be much softer. The planting should be installed. We've got railings to go in to kind of finish off these garden walls, and just in time for our bank valuer next Tuesday. This is what it looks like inside. So we've got our show flat dressed on the ground floor of one of the 2 beds. Balcony spaces obviously look really cool from French doors on the first floor opening out into the here. You can see yourself with a little bistro set in the evening. That is sort of south facing as well, so that will get huge amounts of sun. Yeah, super happy with kind of how that's ended up. I really love the bathrooms in this development. We've gone for some LED strip lighting underneath the vanity of the toilet and the sink. Ambient lighting, basically. So if you get up in the middle of the night, need a wee, you don't want to be blinded by the big downlights, you just got a softer underlit section behind here. And the semi recessed basins look really, really good with the wall hung fittings. Again, not easy to do in terms of construction, but when it's finished it does look fantastic. You just have to make sure that you get your distances right and make sure you've left enough of a recess for the LED, and you've got space for the wall hung fittings. So yeah, a bit of work to go into that, but yeah, really happy with how this development is shaping up. And we do have 5 of the 9 under offer. We've exchanged on 3 of those 5. We're due to exchange on the other 2 next week. So as soon as we've got these water connections in, we will be going through final sort of checks with building control, getting them out for one final time, making sure that we've just gone through their checklist of things that we need to address, and hopefully we can get the 5 sold very, very fast. I'm sure there'll be delays and a few issues, but that's just part of the process. But yeah, super excited to start phase 2, which is the 11 units that we'll be jumping onto next. Cool.
So yeah, so this was actually, we're talking about Thames still, so it's probably quite a nice segue that this rolls into. But essentially, the valuer who's coming back to value the site for phase 2 funding, so we're getting a new debt facility in to pay down our original development lender and give us the funds to do the next phase of the build. And I was walking through Morzine and talking to the valuer about the site and what has changed, because it's actually the same valuer that already came to site even before we got all the planning. And as I was talking through it, it came to my apparent sense that it wasn't that clear or clearly cut what we're doing. And we've essentially moved 2 commercial tenants around, re-geared those leases, and they're on the left-hand side of the part, but it juts into the middle of the site. We've then got 9 apartments that are finished, 7 which can be sold because of access through phase 2, 2 that are then going into phase 2 but are finished, so the valuation of those are finished flats when they're complete and no build costs against them. And then the far part of the site is technically a development site. It's you're taking the gross development value minus the build costs, minus the margin, and there's your land value for that site. So quite a complicated valuation, but it's not actually that complicated if you can visualize it. So all I said was, look, I don't think I'm going to be able to explain this as well as if we have a call tomorrow and I just walk you through Google Maps, the floor plans, and I'll record the call and you can just have a little look around it. He's going to start on Tuesday with our project manager, which is going to do the same, but at least he can understand it and visualize it now. I'm quite a visual person myself, so I kind of know that even though I've been to site, probably near 50, 60 times and understand it inside out, it's very difficult to communicate that to a valuer, which might end up in a situation where they haven't valued it correctly, or you're back and forth on emails trying to help them understand what's valued where and how and who. So it was just a fairly brief call, probably 30, 40 minutes, but just rolling through the scheme and actually allowing the valuer to see visually what's going on. And he sort of said, yeah, it is actually quite simple once you understand it. Thank you for going through that. Now I'm going to site, I know what I'm looking for and what I'm doing from that respect. So it's just sort of protecting yourself and giving yourself that time with the valuer to make sure that they're on board with what you need, because essentially they're helping you get the valuation you need for the funding that you need. So a fairly straightforward, tip, but it works wonders because he's now well equipped to understand what he's valuing, essentially, which is his job.
Nice. Hopefully he agrees with us on Tuesday. That'll be the next problem.
Yeah, I mean, telling a story and also sort of talking through what values we're selling it for and things like that will help.
Yeah, nice. Did you show him the sales, progress and the costings that we've achieved? Yeah, nice. Cool. On to the Q&A, Peter. If you're still tuned in, this one was from you a couple of days ago. If I understand correctly, Longhambra only has a population of circa 3,000. Is there a set of criteria that you use to ensure sufficient demand for the end product? And this is in relation to a deep dive we did on our doctor's surgery conversion in Longhambra, which we're turning into effectively 5 flats with 14 HMO rooms. So how do we ensure there's demand for that, Jack?
Yeah, so we have, I can't actually remember which episode it is. Ben might be able to find it while I'm chatting away on this one. So it was only a few episodes ago, but we do a higher level review on any HMO area that we look at. One of my rules of thumb is, and this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but if an area is below 15,000 people, it's going to be more difficult to let that as a HMO portfolio or as a HMO development, which is essentially cluster flats. But that we always have a caveated rule. And if the population is under 15,000, but it's close to somewhere else, like Longhambra is very close to Woodstock, it's very close to an airbase, it's very close to Whitney, it's also very close to Oxford. You can sometimes take a little bit of a rule of thumb that might have more of a drag of population for people living there. One of the reasons that I know there's quite a lot of people looking in that location, because I know someone that owns an unlicensed HMO that's above a fish and chip shop, and he said to me he's never had issues renting it out. So there's obvious risk that you need to run that, and how you manage that is a multitude of ways, looking at the population, but also looking at employment. Looking at one thing that we can do is you can actually look at the demographic of the age. So our typical person that moves into a HMO is 20 to 40 years old. You can see the age demographic in that population. You can also put out dummy ads on spareroom.com to see how many inquiries you have coming in. And you can, once you've done all of that assessment, you can also assess the people looking for bedrooms on Spare Room in Longhambra against the people that are the rooms that are available. So stressing that sort of ratio of how many you can let. But it is one of the smaller areas that we're doing, but it's surrounded by larger areas too. Another really good example of that which is my favorite example of this, is Twyford. The population of Twyford is like less than 3,000 people, but as a commuter into London, loads of people that want to move out of London move to Twyford because it's between Henley, Reading, Maidenhead, and it's a tiny population, but that population is rich with people that want to move out of the city into the sort of more suburban areas, but it's only like a 17-minute train into London Paddington, so a really good opportunity to let there. Longhambra's got a train station in it, believe it or not, even though it's got 3,000 people, but we're fairly confident that we'll let those rooms pretty quickly.
I think there's also, when you look at the sites in particular, and the logistics of what it's got, it's an old doctor's surgery. I think it's got 9 parking spaces available for us for use now. So 9 spaces, car parking spaces for 15 people. It caters really well for those that have cars that want to live in shared accommodation, workers that work nearby, for example. So that it also has that going for it. If it was a 14 units with 0 parking and really poor accessibility, that could be a different story if in a small town like Longhambra. But there's other facilities that the property has to offer and had to offer that will help the saleability and rentability of that particular scheme. Cool. I'm going to throw this one on the screen as well now, because Nabil, sorry, you messaged us half an hour ago, but how would you value a hotel development project in terms of NGDV? Yeah, this is a really it's a really difficult one, actually. We've looked at hotels in the past to operate them as a hotel, and our understanding is that you realistically need 2 years worth of books running it as a hotel, because you're basing that value on an income basis rather than like a bricks and mortar value. So if you've not got that time frame to allow for the value to be added, to see it operational, because it is an operational business, you're going to really struggle to get in and out of that type of thing really quickly.
Yeah, I would say a hotel is valued more similarly to a business, like a trading business, than actually an asset. Obviously, our social housing portfolio is valued on a gross or net yield, but with hotels, it's really difficult to work out your operational costs, as Ben said, to work out your income. So it's not like HMOs. A typical way to value a HMO is a sui generis or a circa 7-bed commercial valuation. Is you deduct 20% operational costs. And then you multiply that net income by whatever value for that area. So Oxfordshire, that might be 9 or 10%. The reason that it's not just 20% fixed for hotels is if you have a boutique hotel or holiday inn, your overheads are going to be a larger chunk of the revenue that you're bringing in. So it's not a fair assumption. The way that it's actually broken out, if you got a Red Book RICS valuation, is they have 3-part valuations for hotels. The best way to get a valuation, which is what Ben mentioned, is called MV1, which is called Market Value 1, which is where you've been operating the hotel for over 2 years and you've got proven costs, proven revenues, proven occupancy, and then you basically take that EBITDA and times it by a multiplier. The multiplier is going to be greater if it's in a better location, and it's all going to be better if it's less demand on a manager who might leave and then the business starts to fail. So how systemized and predictable that business is. You can get a Market Valuation 3, which will also come part of the valuation if it's not up and running, which is where you are operating as a hotel with an income and you probably have monthly P&L, but you might not have over 2-year books. So you've not got a proven consistent income, which makes it quite difficult. So people we know who do hotels, they normally get a funding package to carry them the 2 years and then refinance the asset out. And then you have an MV3 valuation, which is essentially a completely empty, not running property, and that is really difficult for valuers to value because they're valuing an asset of a business which isn't operating yet, and there's a lot of assumptions that they have to make, and that is why a lot of people that buy empty hotels and turn them around can make really good value increase, because you're essentially taking a huge liability. We have to remember a lot of commercial and residential buildings, when they're vacant, are still an asset, because they might be lettable. You can't easily let a hotel. So it's a very difficult industry to get into. But to answer it in short, Nabil, if you did a RICS valuation, it would be MV1, MV2, MV3, and it's normally a multiplier of the EBITDA of the business.
Good stuff. Gary asked, how do you and Ben split your time with the business you run together alongside running your other business? I'm thinking of setting up a business with a friend alongside my current business and worry about both putting the same in. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for the content every week. The information you guys share is amazing. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, how do we split our time? I mean, depends on what's going on in each business. I mean,
changes week by week, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've managed to sort of get Aura into a position where, I don't have to do a huge amount. We've got systems and people in place to kind of keep that ticking over. We're in a massively busy delivery period at the moment in terms of delivering 65 units across 5 sites. So, a lot of my time is focused on making sure that they're being delivered successfully. But yeah, there is a lot going on. There's no real hard and fast rule. I think there's an element of kind of trust that Jack's doing his part of the deal, I'm doing my part of the deal, and when the business is split pretty similarly like that, in terms of Jack's land and acquisitions, I'm design and delivery, it's relatively clear on who's responsible for what. So there's no real hard and fast rule, is there?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's back down to the sort of morals of partnership. You've got to feel that you're in the same corner and fighting the same fight. And if you had, a need to go and, got a family holiday, I've just come back from skiing and, I didn't do much work this week, but when you go away, that'll be similar ones return. So I think it's essential that you have that trust in splitting the time. If you haven't got a partner, Gary, it is difficult to split your time when you're running multiple companies. Basically, I believe we spend most of our time, both of us, in XP Property. Ben spends obviously a fairly equal amount of time in Aura as I do in Central Suites, because I'm not really in the day-to-day. I grew that business working in evenings and weekends, in actual fact. And then we both sort of allocate a bit of time in XP Surveys, mainly around our skills, probably not more actually who is available. That's quite a key thing to probably touch on. when a business needs you, it either needs your time or your skills. And sometimes you have to share the time, because not one person can be doing all of the time requirement in that business. If it's requiring your skills, it might naturally be, I might have to badly do it if Ben's not available or too busy. But if it's better suited to his skills, it obviously makes more sense to divide that by his skills. But essentially, people ask me this all the time. They're like, how do you run multiple businesses? And I say, well, if I work 80 hours a week, I'm able to work twice as much as the average, employee would work on a 40-hour contract. Therefore, I'm divvying up more time to control the businesses, and it's just putting in hard work essentially to get us where we are. And I've actually started to notice the business does need less of us in the day to day, as much as it did like 3-4 years ago, maybe even last year. So there is obviously that trajectory of where the business is going. I think that's really started to pay dividends when Ben and I had an assistant come in the business as well as people in their specific areas supporting us and helping us grow that particular business. I think we probably more focus on just high value tasks over who's doing what, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I mean, there isn't a right answer, because every business will be different, every partnership will be different, and every skill set is different. But I think we just try and make sure it's fair. And I think we're always willing to jump on a Zoom call at 11 p.m. at night and run through things together collectively, because that's sometimes the only time that we have to do one-to-ones with ourselves.
Yeah, the only other advice I would give is just to be honest in that process. If you're struggling, if what you don't want is like frictions. So as soon as you think something's not going well, you should raise it and have that open discussion and make sure that you've got that relationship with your friend to be able to kind of have those frank conversations, because it's you're doing each other a disservice if you don't sort of discuss issues as well as discussing the good stuff. So yeah, like Jack says, there's no right or wrong. It's there's many ways to kind of go about it, but hopefully that info was useful for you. I think we'll just do one more, because Tash has just messaged, hi guys, how do you make yourself presentable to investors for flips early in property journey when you haven't done a deal yet? To make yourself presentable. Yeah, I mean, it depends on your background. I think we did a couple of weeks ago talk about our investment track record document. If you've not got a track record, it's difficult to pull that together. But what skill sets do you have that make you trustworthy, that make you credible in terms of transferable skill sets? Presenting. Nobody likes to blow their own trumpet, but when you're out there selling yourself, you have to just look at every opportunity that you've taken in the past, every experience that you've done, every job that you've done, and see how it can transfer to what you're now doing, to show tenacity, to show problems that you've overcome. And most people invest in people, not just the deal. So make yourself as presentable as you can do, really, with the experience that you've got.
Yeah, and I would just add the one of the most important things we've discussed before is the no like and trust factor. If someone feels that they can know, like, and trust you in property, you can play a role of being the conductor. So even though Ben and I came from like a building background, and Ben more sort of professional around construction, we had to learn everything about the finance stack, and we had to get a broker in to help us through that process. We had lawyers that represented us from the law side of things. We had a tax advisor that came in. We had a mentor. We had people all the way around us. So our investors actually thought, even though these guys are green in some areas, they've brought in skill sets that cover them in their weak areas. So they have that team around them to deal with the problems as and when they arise. And problems do come and arise. And if investors don't believe that, then maybe you shouldn't be working with them anyway. But essentially, it's all about building that sort of critical compounding value. Start small, grow. The second one is, I've always said this, and it's weird to think, the first deal is always the hardest to fund. And then every deal after that gets easier and easier because you're building that track record. So keep at it, Tash. We've actually done quite a few videos on capital raising. But I would just say, give off that impression that you've got all of the risk covered off, and find someone that can know, like, and trust you, and it will land.
Nice. We've just had another question come in, Namis development. We're going to have to save that to next week. I'll take a screenshot and make sure that we answer that next week. So do stay tuned. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you found that valuable. Have a great weekend. And yeah, just keep the questions coming because we will touch on them next week. But yeah, until then, have a good weekend. Bye.